Chris Hensley is a registered representative of Cambridge Investment Research, Inc., a broker-dealer member of FINRA SIPC, investment advisor representative of Cambridge Investment Research Advisors, Inc., a registered investment advisor. Cambridge and Houston First Financial Group are not affiliated.
The Houston Midtown chapter of the Society for Financial Awareness presents Money Matters with your host, Christopher Hensley.
Good morning, everybody. You're listening to Money Matters on KPFT Houston. I'm Chris Hensley. The time is now 10 a.m., and we've got a great show lined up for you today. When it comes to sharing information about your finances, it's difficult to do when you're working with adults. Even more difficult is working with kids and teens. There's been much debate as what is the best way to approach it? How do you teach and model behaviors for children and teens when it comes to getting on track financially and best practices for your finances? Our guest today is Tammy Johnston, and she is the co-author of a series of financial guides aimed towards teens called The Financial Guides. She will be joining us very, very shortly, and we will do kind of a deep dive into the topic of teens and finances, as well as talk about other things that she has going on right now. So please stay tuned. Keep listening. She will be joining us very, very shortly. But for longtime listeners of the show, you know that we always reserve the first few minutes of the show to tell you a little bit about SOFA, the Society for Financial Awareness, who we are and what we do. We are the Houston Midtown chapter of the Society for Financial Awareness. We are a nonprofit 501c3 Educational Speakers Bureau. Our mission is to fight financial illiteracy. And we do that by going out to different companies, different organizations, different groups, anywhere people already congregate, and we provide financial education seminars as well as health and wellness workshops. So how does this work? Well, typically, we're going to do around the lunch hour a brown bag lunch and learn type seminar. We have a real example coming up here at on the 12th of July. We are doing a Getting Your Financial House in Order talk out at the Houston Metropolitan Federal Credit Union. Now, I mentioned this one because most of the time when we go out and do SOFA talks, they are limited to just the employees of the company or the association that we're going out to speak at. This one is open to the public, and so it is free. It is going to be on July 12th, and to find out more details about that, you can contact the Houston Metropolitan Federal Credit Union. I believe Joel Cardona is the contact for us there, or you can reach out to our local website, which is www.houstonmidtownsofa.org. Now, that's an example of when we go out to different places and talks and do the financial education talks. But what are we doing when we get out there? What kind of topics are we talking about? Well, we're talking about budgeting. This particular one, we're going to be talking about first-time home purchases and how to pay your mortgage off early, how to build equity quickly. But we might go out and talk about real estate purchases. We might go out and talk about retirement. We might go out and talk about credit card debt. How do you get out of credit card debt? How do you purchase a car? How do you negotiate for one of the very first purchases when you get out into the working world, either a car, buying a home, things that we weren't necessarily taught in high school or even college that we need to know, how to balance a checkbook. So why would a company or organization have us come out and talk? Well, for one thing, it's fun, it's motivational, it helps get people up and out of their seats. They get to learn about things that are extremely important on their day-to-day lives, but it is also for any company or organization that has a retirement plan in place that is an ERISA-sponsored retirement plan. They are required to have a educational piece at least once a year, and that's under 404C, which is an ERISA requirement. Basically states that any company that has a retirement plan in place has to have a financial education piece at least once a year. So a lot of times those companies or organizations are going to offload that to the 403B guy or the 401K guy. But what happens is when they come out, you might see a little bit of a surface dive into asset allocation, but most of the time it's going to be how to log on to the website, how to general things around the 401k or the 403b, but you don't see a real deep dive into the educational aspect of your finances, and that's what SOFA is really, really good at doing. We are a nonprofit. It is all pro bono. I am a financial advisor. If we had a realtor come out, that would be a licensed realtor. If we had a attorney come out and talk about estate planning, then we have a member here who is a volunteer who is giving his time pro bono to come out and talk about wills and estate planning and that sort of thing. All of this is done free of charge and at no cost to the organization. If you'd like to find out more information about SOFA here in Houston and the Gulf Coast region, you can visit our website at www.houstonmidtownsofa.org. And if you are listening outside of the Houston area and you'd like to have a SOFA member come out to your city or state, you can reach out to the national office at www.sofausa.org. And with that, let's go ahead and get our guest on the line here. Tammy, are you there?
I'm here.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Now, I always start the show the same way. I always share just a little bit about you, and I know that you are a financial services representative. You're a financial professional. You've been in the business for 23 years, and 14 of those years you've worked with kids and teens when it comes to finances. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, maybe outside of that bio, so that we can get to know you just a little bit better?
Well, I actually started on the administration side in the industry, so it was my job to train the other advisors and help them figure out their products and deal with any client problems and stuff. And I really liked that, and then I decided, okay, when my husband and I were thinking about having our family, we're going, okay, do I want to be putting my child in daycare and sticking with the 9 to 5 and doing all of that other unpleasant stuff? And I said no. So that's when I decided to start my company and go into the sales and helping the families directly instead of just helping the agents with it. And I decided that I really needed to set up my company very, very different than anything I'd seen in the industry, because the very sad part is Canadians have the lowest rate of financial literacy in the Westernized world.
That I did not know that. One of the things you just said that's interesting is that your background was on the administrative side, and what I found is some of the most intelligent advisors that I have met started in that side of the business, and you got to see a little bit of everything from doing that. I actually started on the operations side, so the neat part of that is you end up seeing so much stuff come through there as opposed to people that just get thrown out into the world and really don't know much about it.
Well, it was a great education because, like I said, you can't even make me raise my eyebrows. There isn't anything that I haven't seen, heard, or dealt with in my career, because I dealt with pretty much every company in one way or another in Canada, and like you said, any interesting thing. So I got to come in with all of that wonderful knowledge. But what I wanted to do that was differently, because I was going through and finding out, like I said, Canadians have the lowest rate of financial literacy in the Westernized world. And the big thing is, we never talk about money. We're almost British in that respect. It's considered an impolite topic, and we don't teach it in schools. Like, we're trying, and it could be really good, but they haven't figured out how to do it yet. So how I started is I actually started a one-day financial course, everything you need to know about money, think you do, and I guarantee you don't. And I would have all sorts of people come to class. Like, I have a PhD mathematician client. I've got doctors. I've got lawyers. I've got accountants. I've got very smart people. And they're going through the day with me, and they're going, how come I didn't know this coming out of high school? How come I didn't know this? And how come, like, I've lost years, if not decades, because I've been making mistakes that I wasn't even aware of? And then one of the biggest questions I would get is, what can you recommend for my kids? Because if I had learned the stuff that you taught me today before I graduated, my life would be completely different. I wouldn't have made some of the mistakes that I did, and I wouldn't have missed a lot of the opportunities I didn't even know were available to me. And I went, I'll have to check into that for you, because I can recommend a lot of really good books for adults, but I can't think of anything for kids. And I started to do the research and found that there was pretty much nothing available for the kids to be able to sit down and read and learn on their own. Like, there's the Cash Flow for Kids game by Robert Kiyosaki, and now there's a few books starting to come out, but most of them are aimed at the parents to read and then try talking to their kids. And that just doesn't work.
Right. I mean, it's a difficult subject to approach. I have a 5-year-old, and there is, I actually had a guest on the show that has written a book for children on money, and that was like the one that I knew about. So when I started looking at the financial guides that you have, I was impressed, because it's a whole series, and it's really good information. Tell us about the book series, the financial guides, kind of how that came about and what that's all about.
Well, like I said, when I was getting the question, like, what can you recommend for kids, and I couldn't find anything, I'm going, okay, there's a huge need for this. Like, this, we go to so much effort to teach our kids, like, all the life skills that they need. Like, we teach them how to drive, and we teach them how to dress themselves, and about nutrition and that. We're leaving, money affects absolutely everything. I was listening to your little intro while I was waiting to come on, and I'm going, I love what you guys do, because money affects absolutely everything. And if you're stressing about something, or if you've got a question like, how can I buy my house, or how can I pay it off faster, or down in the States you guys have this wonderful problem, what if I have a medical emergency and I don't have the money to pay for it? That affects everything. That's the main thought in your head, and you're not thinking about your job. It's affecting your relationships, and it's a negative downward spiral on everything if it's not taken care of. So I love what you guys do.
Well, thank you. I totally agree. It's not just about the finances. There's stress that's directly correlated to whether you have money or not, or whether you're stressed out about paying the bills. And that brings me to my next topic, budgeting. How important is budgeting?
It is a foundational piece. Absolute foundational piece, because everybody wants to talk about the exciting stuff like investing and paying off the mortgage faster, but if you don't have a basic working budget set up, what's the point? Everything's going to come crashing down. Some people have the innate ability to do it naturally, but most people, we need to sit down and figure out how to do it and make sure that it works for your personality. When I sit down with people, with clients on a one-on-one basis, I make them get financially naked with me. I see everything. They show me their bank statements. They show me all their credit card statements. They show me their mortgage. They show me absolutely everything. And it's next to impossible for me to sit down with a family and not find at least $200 a month that they're bleeding and they don't even know about it, because they never look at the stuff. They don't know what it is that they're looking at. They don't know what their options are, and they're making donations to very profitable companies all over the place, bank fees, insurance that isn't insurance, charges that they didn't know were going on. I thought I canceled that like a year ago, and it's still coming off of my credit card and stuff like that. So when I go through and I'm going, okay, we've saved you a minimum of $2,400 a year. How's that feel? Just by sitting down, because we're talking the dirty subject of budget.
I agree with you 100%. It's one of the most important parts of people's finances, but it's often one of the hardest, kind of getting them to sit down and do that. But that's kind of they like the investing, they like the insurance, they like all this other stuff, but this is really where you have to start. So sometimes it's difficult getting them to do that, but so beneficial to them. So I just agree with what you're saying 100%. I'm going to kind of shift a little bit here because I'm going to go back to the books there. And one of the books, one of the topics that stuck out to me was the slight edge. I'm a big fan of the book, The Slight Edge. I've had the author on here, but having that information kind of available for kids. Can you tell us a little bit about what that is and what that's all about?
Well, actually, out of the 6 books out of the first set, because I have the first set out and the second set's going to be out here in the fall. But that's personally my favorite book because I'm a huge fan of The Slight Edge. The Slight Edge is making yourself aware of how your daily actions, your daily choices, your daily decisions add up over time to either positive or negative results. Because our results don't come right away, so many people forget they go, okay, it doesn't matter. I don't have to worry about it or anything. And I kind of explain it like this. When my dad was young, he started smoking. And it was long enough ago where they didn't know that smoking was bad. It was actually back when doctors were still prescribing cigarettes for stress and things like that. So they didn't know it was a bad thing. And he didn't get sick and die right away when he started smoking at 10. But my dad died very, very painfully of emphysema. And it wasn't the first cigarette that got him. It wasn't even the 100th. But when you start adding up thousands and thousands, the damage was irreversible. And it's the same way for your good habits. Okay, when you get into the habit of exercising and keeping that up, you have a lot of high school and college athletes that sit on the couch as soon as they're finished school for the rest of their lives and then wonder why their bodies aren't working. And they have heart disease and all of this stuff, where the ones that are okay, I'm regularly going to go to the gym. I'm going to be putting aside that $20 a month starting when I'm a teenager into my financial freedom account and leaving it and letting it grow. And then when they hit adulthood, look at how much it's grown, and then they get to see that. So it's making them aware of it's not just the result, it's the steps that you have to consistently take to get there.
I love it. I love it. That's great information for adults, much less getting it in a format that children can look at. And for people who are just joining us now, we're talking with Tammy Johnston, and we're talking about her series of books. The website is www.thefinancialguides.com. And if you're driving in your car, I'll give that website again before the show is over. Now, I know you also go out and you do talks as well, and it says that you've gone out and you've talked about credit before. What would you like to tell people about credit?
Well, credit is a wonderful tool if you're using it properly. I explain it, it's kind of like a really sharp knife. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? It's a neutral thing. It depends on who's using it. If you put a really sharp knife in the hands of a 2-year-old, you're going to end up with a bloody mess. If you put a really sharp knife in the hands of a master chef, and they can do wonderful things with it. And unfortunately, most people are unaware of all the different things that go along with it, and they make a lot of mistakes. And the differences between American laws when it comes to what the credit card companies can do and the Canadian laws are actually fairly different. In Canada, we have a lot more protections for us, but there's still stuff that they can do. But people aren't aware of how their credit rating is built and how it is affected and the different things that go along with it. And the other thing that is huge is the risk of identity theft. And most people think, well, nobody's tried to put a $5,000 TV on my credit card, so everything's going to be fine. Well, financial identity theft is only one of 5, and it's actually on the decline. But knowing the other ones, like your medical, your character, your social insurance number, and driver's license, those can actually affect your life in so many different ways. And companies are looking at running credit checks on employees before they hire them. There's an awful lot of colleges and universities where if you do not have good credit, you're not getting accepted. And then if you're looking to get a student loan or anything like that, that all comes into it, let alone wanting to buy a house or a car or anything like that.
Absolutely. These are all extremely important points. Interesting when you mentioned the difference between Canada and the U.S. on the protection, the consumer protection laws there. It's even different in different parts of the U.S. See, I'm here in Texas. We have some of the most consumer-friendly protection laws out there when it comes to debt or unsecured debt. However, a lot of times when credit collectors call, they'll call from other parts of the country, and they'll tell people that they can do things like putting a lien on their home and all this stuff, which may be legal in other parts of the U.S., but not in Texas. So it's very confusing. It's very different region by region, and I imagine even Canada versus the U.S., lots of different intricacies there with the law. Let's talk again about teens. What do teens need to know when it comes to their finances?
Well, the big thing, and I take on a lot of young clients, so a lot of my clients, when their kids are graduating high school and stuff, they make sure that they come visit me so that they get set up, because the sooner they start talking about it, going, I have no money. Well, this is why you want to be talking to me, because you want to have money. But the three main things that I make sure that kids need to know and understand, and kids, like, they might put up a bit of the fuss and stuff like that because it's like, okay, it's just another adult lecturing me. But once you start talking to them, they're very financially motivated. It's not that they're stupid or they don't want to know, it's just they don't want to appear uncool. And they want to know that they're making good choices and how things work. So the number one thing that I make sure they know is to be aware of their finances. So many kids up here, I don't think it's quite the same down in the States, because you don't have, up in Canada, we use debit cards for everything. We're not talking the debit Visa or the debit MasterCard, like straight debit cards that come out of your bank account. And they're absolutely everywhere and have been for the last 15 years. So very few people actually carry cash. And when they're using the plastic, they don't see it as like money coming out of their wallet or their account, because they don't make the same emotional connection as like when you have to hand over a $20 bill or anything. So they'll be spending money that they're not aware of. In fact, I had one young guy come to me, and he did all of his banking on his smartphone. So we pulled it up, and I'm going, how come you're paying like $275 in bank fees here, and last month it was $280, and the month before it was $320? He says, what do you mean? He said, no, right here. They're charging you, like, these are your bank fees. And what had happened is he put all of his money into his savings account, and then he was using his savings account to pay for everything. Well, every time he did a withdrawal or did a debit transaction, he was being hit with a $2.50 bank fee. And he didn't even know about it because he never even bothered to look at his statements. He just went, okay, do I have the money in my account? Yep, everything's good. And they had been doing that for 4 months. He had paid close to $1,100 in bank fees because he just wasn't aware. He wasn't paying attention.
Wow.
Yeah. So he thought it was really good to sit down with me. So biggest thing, being aware of what is going on with your money, being conscious. It doesn't take a lot of time. It doesn't take a lot of effort. It's just slowing down for like literally a moment and asking yourself the question, do I really want this? What's going on? Is everything matching up? Next thing is actually start planning out what you need to be spending your money on, putting together that budget. Like, what are going to be my housing costs? What is it going to cost me to feed me? And then the thing that messes up most budgets is people will remember and take into account the money that they have to spend every month, the rent, the food, the insurance on the car, their student loan payment, but they forget about the stuff that only comes up maybe once or twice a year, like registering your vehicle, or the kids are going back to school, so you've got your school fees and stuff like that. So looking at your expenses throughout the year and planning for them so that it's not a surprise and you're not going, oh, I have extra money in my account, let's go out to the bar and celebrate. And then they're going, oh, we have a problem here. And then the third thing for young kids starting out is learn about compound interest. It can be your best friend. Even if all you can afford is put $10 a paycheck into a jar and then you put it into an account and you start investing it. the sooner you start, the better it is. Compound interest can be your best friend if it's working for you.
I love it. I love it. Those are all three very, very good points. The sooner they learn them, the better. The compound interest can be your best friend, but it can also be your worst enemy.
Yeah, that goes back to the credit thing, being aware. Being aware.
So knowing what it is just a huge thing to begin with. So let's shift a little bit again and talk about, there is a project that you're working on this month. Tell us about what you're planning on doing this month.
Well, what I'm doing is I'm actually going to be launching my podcast. Hopefully we can get all the last bits of the technical stuff done so it's launching next week. But what I'm doing is I'm talking with business owners that are also parents and discussing things like, what are some of the lessons you learned about money as a kid? What are some of the lessons you wished you had learned? And then how are you discovering things are changing now being a parent and seeing that your kids, and how are they reacting, and how are you teaching them? And it's been really, really good. I've been interviewing some awesome people with kids all across the spectrum, so like really little ones that are just graduating high school. I interviewed a good friend of mine. He's got 6 kids. Oldest just graduated high school. Youngest is in grade 1. And, like, the mixed families. And it's been really interesting. So talking with different people and just getting how different families look at things and how much the subject of money has changed from, like, when I was a kid to now. In some ways it's much more open, but in some ways it's still exactly the same, that we don't talk about it and the parents just look after it, and then we send our kids out into the big bad world and they don't know what they're doing.
I love it. I love it. That's a great topic. How will we be able to listen to you or get access to it once it launches?
So we'll be launching it through iTunes, and the podcast is called Financial Fun, but there will also be a link to it on my website, so thefinancialguides.com. So if you want to listen, I would love to have you listen.
It sounds right up my alley. Everything that you just mentioned there, I'm going to have to put it on my podcatcher here and start listening at the gym. So absolutely. So it's called Financial Fun. It's going to be available on iTunes. Let me, before, and we're kind of bumping towards the end of the show here, what are some of the biggest roadblocks to being financially successful, do you think, for most people?
The two ones, not being aware of what's going on with their money. I work with a lot of people that make good money. Like I'm in Alberta, which is the Texas of Canada. we have a lot of oil money here, and there's a lot of wealth here, but there's also a lot of income inequality and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But the biggest thing is most people are just so unconscious about their finances. Their lives are so busy. They're working, they're getting kids to and from this, and they've got all these demands that they never sit down and take the 15 minutes a week to plan their finances and know what's going on. And the next thing you know, you went from having a newborn to a daughter in junior high, and you've missed all this time, and for the simple fact that you weren't aware. And the other one I would say is you need to get educated. You need to start making it a normal topic of conversation. One of the things that I love about being a small business owner, I spend almost all of my time with other small business owners. So we talk about money and we talk about business, and not in a negative way, but just, oh, well, this is what this person's doing, and this is what I found out about, and sharing information. And then you get to learn and you get to grow. Like, I've been doing this professionally my entire life. This is all I have done. And there has been so many changes in the last 23 years, and it's not slowing down, and it's not stopping. So even if you get a good education in school or university, if you don't keep learning, your knowledge becomes obsolete. So it needs to become a normal, healthy part of life, because you can go from destitute, broke, poor, but building up your knowledge and your comfort with the subject and learning to being very, very wealthy. And you can have a really good job and make lots of money and be broke because you are not handling it properly.
Absolutely. I know we've both seen people like that, and it's you mentioned earlier that when this all got kicked off, you had doctors and attorneys coming up to you. So the idea that it's just low to moderate income is kind of a myth. There are people that have the income coming in, but then their lifestyle catches up, and you just see the money go away from them. Well, we're bumping towards the end of the show right now. Is there anything that I have forgot to ask you that I should have asked you that you'd like to share with the listeners today?
No, I think you've done really good. I'm just going to throw in the people that it doesn't matter if you think you're doing well with money or you think you're doing poor. Knowledge is always a good thing. The clients that get the most out of working with me are the ones that are already actually doing pretty good. They just need to tweak a few things that they didn't know about, and then things get way better. So financial education and knowledge and help from a competent, qualified, give-a-damn expert is not just for people who desperately need the help. It's for everyone. You need to be working with a good financial person. You're not going to go to some guy down the street to go for your medical stuff. You go to professionals. When it comes to money, deal with good people.
Absolutely. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us today. For listeners who'd like to find out more about Tammy, you can visit her website.
Thanks for listening to today's episode of Money Matters Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, visit us on the web at www.moneymatterspodcast.com. Drop us a line on SpeakPipe on the right-hand corner. It will receive any voicemails, questions, thoughts, concerns that you have about the show. In addition to this, we recently launched a Patreon campaign. Click on the Donate Now tab to hit the tip jar and find out what Patreon's campaign is all about.